Joining me is Peter Huxtable and Alison Saxby. Peter, you're a fluorspar expert.
Well, I like to think I am, Mike. I've been in the business some 40 years associated with it. For 20 years of that, I was the managing director at Fleet Mines, the fluorspar operation in Derbyshire in the UK. And for part of that period, I was also chairman of the International Fluorspar Association.
And Alison, you're director at Roskill.
Yes, that's right, Mike. I've been covering the fluorspar industry for nearly 30 years now. And here at Roskill, we carry out consultancy studies and also write reports on minor metals and industrial minerals.
So Peter, you're co-authoring a presentation at Fluorine Forum 2017 about the future of the industry. What can you tell us about that?
It's a very interesting time and obviously a good time to have a lot of delegates coming to find out what's going on in the world, because there is an awful lot happening and a lot of uncertainty. We've seen a lot of turmoil over the last 2 years. We've seen fluorspar volumes dropping. We've seen prices coming down at the same time. But meanwhile, we've seen a complete change in the mix of suppliers. You've already said that there's a limited supply there. And we've seen one large Vietnam coming into the market and several smaller ones. Meanwhile, some of the big players like Mexico and Mongolia have reduced their output quite drastically.
And can I just ask, what about Metspar in relation to acid spar? Is it the same for both?
Acid spar has probably held up reasonably well in the last 2 or 3 years, but it's still below the levels pre-recession of 2008. But the metallurgical side has seen a tumble. With the steel industry has been down. It did pick up a bit last year, but prices have still been depressed there.
One more aspect I'd like to just dwell on, the potential use of non-fluorine related materials in certain applications such as refrigeration or air conditioning. What can we say about that?
I think that's a more mixed area. I mean, certainly domestic refrigeration was lost, I think, mainly to hydrocarbons some years ago, although there are safety fears there. They're more a problem if you're going into some of the more traditional refrigerant gases in supermarkets or in large areas where people might be there. Therefore, it's more likely that the fluorinated materials will stay there. Car air conditioning, there are some very good refrigerants coming to replace them with zero global warming potential. There are people who think carbon dioxide would make a good refrigeration alternative, but actually that is not very good for the environment, and in warm climates it doesn't give you very good air conditioning either.
Thanks, Peter.
Pleasure.
Alison, one major factor that we mustn't overlook, of course, is China. What can we say about that?
Well, we can say that China is a major influence on the fluorspar market and will continue to be so going forward in the future. In terms of both producing end products such as hydrofluoric acid and aluminium fluoride, but also as an exporter of acid spar. And it is an important importer of met spar as well. So it's continuing to have a big influence. Trade patterns have changed though, literally over the last 5 years. We've seen Chinese exports of acid spar drop from a level of about 400,000 tonnes in 2011 down to about 200,000 tonnes in 2016. So there are things are happening.
On the subject of the environment, we've seen that have quite an impact in certain other mineral industries in China with these particular pollution controls. Is the same happening in fluorspar?
The fact is the Chinese government will continue to influence the policy on fluorspar supply and demand. Fluorspar has just been named as a strategic mineral. That's going to influence the resources and reserves and allocation. The Chinese government, in terms of the environmental and pollution side of things, they've brought in lists of approved producers. Now this means smaller producers are having to find the investment necessary to upgrade their facilities. Some of them are going out of business, or there's driving consolidation in the industry.
There's some saying that perhaps in the future China may well be a net importer of fluorspar. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, because we have seen in 2015 and 2016 some small imports, minor imports at the moment compared to the total world production, but it has started to happen. So that is something to watch in the future.
So thanks, Alison. And Peter, thank you both very much for your valuable insight into this industry. Thanks once again.